if you, and I believe you are going to win this race, and you're going to show up and be sworn in as a member of Congress in 2025. So after you settled into your congressional offices, what are going to be your top priorities?
I appreciate that. Everything's got to be earned, of course, right? And this is going to be a grassroots campaign knocking on doors, and nothing is assumed and everything needs to be earned.
Yes, I agree. And I'll
putting
be there.
that aside, yeah. So look, I mean, when I knock on doors, what I'm hearing from folks is, first of all, like, we got to stop Donald Trump. We got to defend our democracy. But the issue everybody's talking about is affordability. It's a huge problem across the country. I think it's driving a lot of the frustration and dissatisfaction people feel, but particularly out in Suffolk County when I talk to folks. So
I believe it.
So, I think top line on concrete things Democrats can do to address that, especially in Suffolk County. Donald Trump and the Republicans, raised our taxes by taking away the state and local tax deduction.
Oh, yeah.
And for, if you got a family making $180,000, say, she's a teacher, he's a plumber, that's like $3,800 back in their pocket. That's a big deal. Expanding the child tax credit.
Love that.
We did it for 1 year, man. And
it was the greatest thing that people had seen done in a generation to combat poverty. And by the way, I just want to tell a quick story on this because we will go into it. So the child poverty rate is around, let's call it 11%, and then the enhanced child tax credit kicks in 2021. It goes down to 5%. So 120 economists then endorse it, say this is the greatest thing ever. And because of the dysfunction in Congress, it expires in 22, and so child poverty shoots back up to 11%. But here's something you might not know, is that, well, you probably know this part. So the House passed a partial revival of the child tax credit about 5 weeks ago, and it cleared the House by 200 votes in this House. I mean, imagine something passing. So it had some R&D tax credit stuff and the rest of it.
Just great.
And now it's sitting in the Senate, and a Republican senator said, hey, we don't want to give Joe Biden a win. Because they're concerned about
everything wrong in politics right there.
So this is like exhibit 2 as to the perversion, because they're like, oh, poor kids. Oh, we don't want to alleviate
child poverty because someone might get credit for it.
Yes.
It's insane. No, that's exactly right. Look, we cut child poverty in half. We can raise that. We can expand that child tax credit. It makes a transformational difference. And actually help make just a little easier to raise kids, which is countercultural activity enough. And really make folks feel like the system. It is.
No, me too.
I am. I know.
I mean, the reason I got into public life was my experience as a father, because when that first child arrives, you're like, whoa, my gosh. And then you think about what families are facing around the country.
And government absolutely has a role in making it a little easier. This is another thing. To me, this is what lens through which to view everything. It's not an accident to me that the middle of our politics has been hollowed out at the exact same time that the middle of our economy has been hollowed out.
Wow.
Government needs to be strengthening the middle class. Joe Biden's done a lot to do it. I think ultimately the CHIPS Act and infrastructure bill will do more to help rebuild the middle class in America, but that needs to be the prism through which we're looking at all policies. I think there's obviously combating climate change. It's a huge issue everywhere, and Republicans keep trying to gut mitigation.
And that's probably a big deal in that district.
Absolutely. It's massively coastal. I mean, it affects everybody in every way, and there are concrete things that can be done. We just had the Army Corps of Engineers come and basically pump sand up back on and rebuild a beach, which is a great buffer. It's a temporary solution by which, maybe 5 years, but that's a pretty good deal, good solution. Sure. Transportation is a huge issue that ties with affordability. That's something that the infrastructure dollars well-directed can do. Obviously, this is part of the stakes of the race. If Republicans win Congress, it doesn't matter what their personal opinion is. They're voting for Mike Johnson for Speaker. They're voting for Trump for President. They're in effect enabling a national abortion ban because that is Mike Johnson's personal priority.
Yeah, and I want to go into this for just a moment, because some people might look at this and say, hey, is this like down as Republicans? I mean, the fact is, right now, the way Congress functions, like all the power accrues to whoever the majority leader is in terms of being able to bring legislation, like you just said, that, hey, I'm not even going to bring this bill because, and by the way, like a lot of the rank and file members of Congress just essentially cede that role to whoever's running their party, and they say, okay, I get it. I'm down here in the totem pole. You're up here. I'll just play my role and things. And so much of this is about which party has the ability to bring bills to the floor. And right now, I will say, I mean, this probably is not shocking to people, but I feel like this version of the Republican Party has proven itself not to be terribly interested in governing.
Yeah, that's one way to say it. I mean, some of them would admit it. I mean, they've done nothing. This is the do-nothing Congress. And at a time when we need to be doing a lot. Very often, they are afraid to do what they know is the right thing. And they'll say, I've got to vote this way because they're afraid of a primary, but I hope someone else votes in the national interest. Why are you here? Go home.
They're here to keep their jobs, man. I talked to a guy named...
What a total inversion of ethics.
It's really perverse and dark. And this year, by the way, it's even darker because, I mean, you saw it with his border bill where Democrats approved a fairly tough approach to the border, and the Republican, and then Trump was like, can't pass that because it gets taken off the table as an issue for me, and then Republicans just fell in line.
I think this is something that really gives up the ghost and I think should help people understand how cynical and divisive and dysfunctional Trumpism is and how it erodes people's courage and their conscience and their common sense. And it directly applies to my race because the freshman Republican in the seat, Nick LaLota.
By the way, maybe one of the most vulnerable House members in the country. But
100%.
Yeah.
You know, he was the first of the 18 Republicans who served in a district Biden won to endorse Donald Trump. And he did it like, you know, both hands, you know, so Trump flunky, right? Does whatever he says. And the best example is exactly about that bipartisan border security bill. Exactly as you said. Democrats, look, we want comprehensive immigration reform. That's how you solve this problem. Biden administration puts forward a balanced plan. Ukraine aid, which, by the way, is urgently needed. And, you know, everyone's just running around like little Neville Chamberlains, you know, opposing that. Taiwan and Israel aid. And Republicans said, okay, only we're going to do that aid if we tie it to border security. And Democrats like Chuck Schumer and others, Kristen Sinema, Chris Murphy, were like, okay, we don't want that, but we'll work with you guys. And so they came up working with Oklahoma Senator James Langford, what the Wall Street Journal said is the most, you know, toughest border security bill anyone's ever going to get, including under Trump. You know, the Border Security Patrol said they supported the bill. Trump then, as you said, kills it. Now, Nick LaLota, this thing, by the way, would pass the House if Mike Johnson put it up for a vote. That makes it worse. So they're just denying it a vote because they know it will pass.
It would pass, for sure.
How sick is that? But then LaLota takes the extra step that I think reveals his character or you know, just I think the fundamental like WTF of it all. The guy decides to tweet, my 9-year-old could have done a better job negotiating bedtime than James Langford did on this bill. This is something that Wall Street Journal said was the toughest border security bill that would ever pass, even if Trump were president.
They just pretend it wasn't substantively acceptable, even though that's not it at all.
It's just utter BS. It shows contempt for solving problems, and it's indicative of the MAGA crew because they think bipartisanship's the problem when it's actually the solution. And that means, and this is what pisses me off, they would rather have demagogue the issue than deal with it. They would rather fundraise off it and fearmonger than fix it. And that's a firing offense, man. Not going to fix it. You get out of the way.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode drops. Thank you.